The stars looked peaceful that morning when Admiral Kethver gazed out from the bridge of his massive command ship. Behind him stretched the largest war fleet in galactic history, 1,000 ships arranged in perfect formation like deadly jewels. Against the black void, the Zephyrian Empire had conquered 17 star systems in the past decade, and not a single vessel had been lost in those campaigns. Today would mark system number 18. Fleet. Admiral John Harrison stood in the command center of Lunar Base Alpha, watching the approaching armada through holographic displays that flickered with red warning lights. The alien fleet was massive, larger than anything humanity had ever faced. Each ship in their formation was the size of a small city, bristling with weapons that could crack planets in half. The humans had been monitoring Zephyrian expansion for months, studying every battle, every conquest, every pattern. Every single invasion followed the same script. The aliens would arrive with overwhelming force, demand immediate surrender, and when the planet refused, they would demonstrate their power by destroying a few major cities. After that display of raw destruction, resistance would crumble within. Hours. 17 worlds had fallen exactly this way. Commander Lisa Brooks was Earth's youngest fleet strategist at 32 years old. She had spent countless sleepless nights in the analysis rooms beneath Colorado, watching battle footage from those 17 conquered worlds. Her eyes were red from staring at screens, her coffee cup permanently attached to her hand, but she had noticed something that everyone else had missed. The Zephyrian formations were not just militarily sound, they were mathematically perfect, almost ritualistic in their precision. Captain Ryan Martinez commanded the newly formed Terran Defense Corps, a position created just 6 months ago when humanity realized that alien contact would not be peaceful. He had been skeptical of Brooks' theories about Zephyrian tactical patterns until 3 days ago, when her predictions about their approach route proved completely accurate. Now he hung on every word she spoke. The alien ultimatum arrived exactly when Brooks predicted it would. Admiral Kethver's message was broadcast on every frequency across Earth's communication networks. His voice was cold and mechanical, translated through universal communication protocols that made every word sound like a death sentence. The message was simple and had been used 17 times before. Surrender within 24 Earth hours, or face complete annihilation. President Patricia Williams sat in the underground command bunker, buried 3 miles beneath the Colorado mountains. The bunker had been built during the old nuclear wars, but expanded massively when the first alien signals were detected 5 years ago. Around her, hundreds of military personnel worked at consoles, coordinating with defense installations across the solar system. She looked at the translation of the alien message one more time, then stood to address not just Earth, but the entire human species scattered across the solar system. Her speech was broadcast to every human settlement from Luna to the outer asteroid, mining stations. Her words were simple, but carried the weight of humanity's future. We have built something beautiful among these stars. We have spread life and hope and dreams across this system. We will not kneel to those who would destroy what we have created. We will not surrender what our children deserve to inherit. What Admiral Kethver and his massive fleet did not know was that humanity had been preparing for this exact moment. For decades, every mining operation in the asteroid belt, every research station on Mars, every deep space monitoring outpost had been built with dual purposes. The seemingly peaceful industrial expansion across the solar system was actually the largest military preparation in human history. The asteroid mining platforms were not just extracting metals and rare elements. Hidden within their industrial frameworks were weapons systems that had been tested in secret for years. The scientific installations on Mars were conducting research, but they were also manufacturing experimental weapons and coordinating communication networks that spanned the entire system. Commander Brooks had designed much of the hidden network herself. Her background in mathematics and military strategy had led her to see patterns that others missed. She understood that the Zephyrians' greatest strength was also their greatest weakness. Their perfect formations and predictable tactics made them incredibly effective against disorganized resistance. But they would struggle against an enemy that could predict their every move. The deep space monitoring stations that tracked asteroids and comets were actually sophisticated sensor networks that had been mapping every approach route to Earth for years. They had detected the Zephyrian fleet weeks before the aliens thought they had entered sensor range. Every ship in the enemy formation had been cataloged, analyzed, and tagged with tracking devices so small that the alien sensors could not detect them. Harrison walked among the command staff in Lunar Base Alpha, checking readiness reports from installations across the system. The moon itself had been transformed over the past decade. What looked like simple mining operations on the far side were actually massive railgun installations, powerful enough to accelerate projectiles to significant fractions of light speed. The near side, facing Earth, concealed missile silos and defensive barriers that could protect the planet from incoming fire. Captain Martinez reviewed the final preparations with his staff. The Terran defense corps looked small on paper compared to the alien fleet, but they were not fighting a conventional war. Every human ship, every platform, every installation was connected through quantum communication networks that allowed for coordination impossible with normal technology. They would fight as a single organism spanning an entire star system. The alien fleet continued its approach, confident in their overwhelming superiority. Admiral Kethfer studied the human settlements through his sensors and saw exactly what he expected to see. A primitive species clustered around a single world, with scattered mining operations and research stations that posed no military threat. The humans had some warships, but nothing that could challenge Zephyrian technology. Brooks worked through the night, refining the calculations that would determine humanity's survival. The enemy fleet was massive, but it was also predictable. Their formations were designed for maximum intimidation and overwhelming firepower, not for dealing with an enemy that refused to fight conventionally. She had identified 17 critical weaknesses in their standard approach pattern, vulnerabilities that could be exploited if the timing was perfect. President Williams made one final broadcast as the alien fleet crossed into the outer solar system. Her message was not just for Earth, but for every human listening across the system. Tomorrow, we will show the galaxy what it means to threaten our home. We will demonstrate that humanity does not break under pressure. We bend, we adapt, we overcome. The trap was set, spanning billions of miles of space, coordinated by the finest military minds humanity had ever produced, and powered by weapon systems that had been built in secret for years. Admiral Kethfor and his 1,000 ships were approaching what they thought was an easy victory against a primitive species, but they were actually flying directly into the most sophisticated military ambush in galactic history. The gathering storm was about to break, and the galaxy would never be the same. The battle began exactly as Admiral Kethfer expected it would. His forward scouts moved through the outer reaches of the human solar system like deadly shadows, their sensors sweeping for any signs of resistance. The first human installations they encountered were automated defense platforms orbiting beyond Neptune, crude constructions that seemed almost primitive compared to Zephyrian technology. The platforms opened fire with simple kinetic weapons and basic energy cannons. Exactly the kind of desperate resistance the Admiral had seen 17 times before. His ships destroyed them easily, their shields barely registering the impact of human weapons. Each platform fell within minutes, some exploding in brilliant flashes of light, others simply going dark as their power systems failed. Commander Lisa Brooks watched the destruction from her command post on Luna, her fingers dancing across holographic displays as she tracked every detail of the engagement. The outer platforms had served their purpose perfectly. They were designed to look primitive and desperate, equipped with outdated weapons that would convince the aliens they faced a technologically inferior enemy. More importantly, each platform carried sophisticated scanning equipment that recorded everything about Zephyrian weapons, shields, and tactical patterns. Admiral Kethfor felt the familiar satisfaction of another easy conquest beginning. The human outer defenses had crumbled exactly as predicted, and now his main fleet could advance toward the inner system. His tactical displays showed the expected pattern of human retreat, with scattered ships falling back toward their homeworld. It was the same frightened response he had seen from every species. The Empire had conquered, but then something unprecedented happened near Jupiter's orbital path. Long-range sensors detected 3 small human vessels moving directly toward the main Zephyrian fleet. The ships were tiny compared to the alien warships, clearly outmatched and outnumbered by impossible odds. It appeared to be a suicide attack, born of desperation and stupidity. Commander Steve Peterson sat in the captain's chair of the U.E.'s Defiance, leading the small squadron that would either save humanity or die trying. His 2 companion ships, the U.E.'s Courage and U.E.'s Determination, flanked him in tight formation as they accelerated toward the massive alien fleet. Peterson was 45 years old, a veteran of the Mars colony wars, and he understood exactly what his mission meant. The 3 human ships were equipped with every conventional weapon Earth could provide, but their real purpose was far more important than the firepower they carried. Hidden within their hulls were experimental scanning arrays that could penetrate Zephyrian stealth technology, quantum transmitters that could send data faster than light, and sensor packages that would map every detail of the alien fleet composition. Peterson opened a channel to his squadron. His voice was calm despite the magnitude of what they were about to attempt. Remember, we need to get close enough for detailed scans before they destroy us. Make them think we are desperate and foolish. Sell the performance, but get the data. Home. The Zephyrian fleet detected the approaching human ships, and Admiral Kethfor almost laughed at their apparent stupidity. 3 tiny vessels charging directly at 1,000 warships was beyond foolish. It was insane. He ordered his forward elements to destroy the humans quickly and continue the advance. There was no point in wasting time on such obvious desperation. The engagement lasted exactly 12 minutes. The human ships fought with everything they had, firing missile barrages and energy weapons that barely scratched Zephyrian shields. They maneuvered desperately, trying to avoid the devastating return fire, but the outcome was never in doubt. One by one, the 3 ships were overwhelmed and destroyed, their final explosions briefly illuminating the darkness of space. Admiral Kethfor barely noticed the destruction of the human squadron. It was exactly what he expected from a primitive species making a last desperate stand. His fleet continued toward Earth, confident that the worst of the resistance had already been broken. The tactical displays showed human forces retreating in disorder, exactly the pattern of collapse that preceded every Zephyrian victory. What the Admiral did not know was that those 12 minutes had changed everything. The 3 human ships had transmitted terabytes of data back to Earth before their destruction. Every Zephyrian ship had been scanned, cataloged, and tagged with quantum markers that would track their movements for the rest of the battle. The supposedly impenetrable stealth fields that protected alien scout ships had been mapped and analyzed. Lieutenant Colonel Amy Foster monitored the data streams from her position in Earth's primary war room, buried deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. The information flowing in from Peterson's sacrifice exceeded even their most optimistic projections. They now knew the exact composition of the enemy fleet, the capabilities of their weapons, the frequencies of their shields, and most importantly, their complete formation structure. Brooks studied the incoming data with growing excitement. The Zephyrian fleet was arranged in perfect mathematical patterns, just as she had predicted. Their formation was designed for maximum intimidation and overwhelming firepower against conventional resistance. But it contained 17 critical vulnerabilities that could be exploited by an enemy that understood their patterns. The alien fleet had also revealed something even more valuable than technical data. They had shown complete contempt for human tactical abilities. Admiral Kethfer had destroyed the 3 ships without changing formation, without deploying additional scouts, without taking any precautions against the possibility that the attack was a deception. His arrogance would be his downfall. Admiral Harrison reviewed the tactical analysis from his command center on Luna. The enemy fleet was enormous and technologically superior, but they were also predictable and overconfident. The data from Peterson's squadron had given humanity exactly what they needed to spring the most sophisticated military trap in galactic history. Foster coordinated with hidden installations across the solar system, uploading the new tactical data to weapons platforms that had been waiting in silence for years. Mining stations in the asteroid belt received updated targeting information. Research facilities on Mars began powering up experimental weapon systems. Defense platforms hidden in Saturn's rings started their final preparation sequences. Zephyrian advance continued toward Earth, leaving behind the scattered debris of 3 small human ships. Admiral Kethfar was pleased with the engagement. The humans had revealed their desperation and tactical incompetence, confirming everything the Empire knew about primitive species. The conquest would proceed exactly according to plan. Brooks entered the final calculations into Earth's defense network, her hands trembling slightly with the magnitude of what they were attempting. Every installation, every hidden platform, every secret weapon across billions of miles of space was now coordinated through quantum communication links. Humanity would fight as a single organism, using the enemy's own predictability against them. Harrison gave the order that would determine humanity's fate in the galaxy. His voice carried across secure channels to every human installation from Mercury to the outer asteroid belt. The words were simple, but carried the weight of their species' survival. Execute Protocol Terran Fury. All units, the trap is now active. The real battle was about to begin, and Admiral Kethfor had no idea that his easy victory was actually leading him directly into the most devastating military ambush in recorded galactic history. Admiral Kethfor stood on his command bridge, watching the red planet Mars grow larger on his tactical displays. His massive fleet had crossed the outer system without significant resistance, destroying scattered human defense platforms and a few desperate patrol ships along the way. The conquest was proceeding exactly according to Zephyrian military doctrine, and the Admiral felt the familiar confidence that came with overwhelming technological superiority. The human forces around Mars appeared to be in complete disarray. Scattered ships fled in all directions like frightened insects, their flight paths chaotic and uncoordinated. Several large vessels that appeared to be cargo haulers and civilian transports were desperately trying to escape toward the inner system, their engines straining to reach maximum velocity. It was exactly the kind of panicked retreat that preceded every Zephyrian victory. What Admiral Kethfar saw as chaos was actually the most complex military maneuver in human history. Every ship that appeared to be fleeing in panic was actually moving to a predetermined position, calculated months in advance. Mining stations that seemed abandoned were quietly powering up weapon systems that had been hidden within their industrial frameworks for years. Research facilities were activating experimental technologies that the galaxy had never seen before. Captain Danny Rodriguez commanded one of the groups of supposed refugee ships fleeing from Mars. His small convoy consisted of 12 vessels that looked like standard cargo haulers, complete with civilian markings and distress signals broadcasting their desperate attempt to escape the alien invasion. The ships moved with apparent panic, their formation loose and uncoordinated, as they tried to reach the safety of Earth. Rodriguez was actually a 20-year veteran of the Colonial Marine Corps, and his ships were heavily armed Q-ships disguised as helpless civilians. Each vessel carried enough firepower to destroy a small fleet hidden beneath fake cargo pods and civilian hull plating. His crew had been preparing for this moment for 3 years, training in secret facilities throughout the outer system. Zephyrian Advance Guard detected the fleeing human convoy and moved to intercept them according to standard procedure. 6 alien warships broke formation to capture or destroy the civilian vessels, their commanders confident that they faced helpless prey. The human ships appeared to panic even more, their formation breaking apart as they tried to scatter in different directions. When the aliens closed to optimal firing range, everything changed in an instant. The fleeing cargo ships suddenly revealed their true nature, dropping their disguised hull sections to expose military-grade weapon systems. Simultaneously, hidden platforms that had been drifting in Mars orbit for months came online. There, targeting systems locking onto the surprised Zephyrian ships. Rodriguez gave the order that began humanity's counterattack. His voice carried across secure channels to every hidden installation in the Mars orbital zone. The words were simple, but marked the moment when humanity stopped running and started fighting. All units, spring the trap. Show them what Earth really built out here. The Mars ambush erupted across thousands of cubic miles of space in perfect coordination. Asteroid mining platforms that had seemed abandoned revealed themselves to be heavily fortified weapons installations. Research stations dropped their civilian facades and opened fire with experimental energy weapons that punched through Zephyrian shields like they were made of paper. The supposedly helpless refugee ships turned into deadly predators, surrounding the alien advance guard in a carefully planned crossfire. The first major Zephyrian losses occurred in those opening minutes of real combat. 47 alien ships were destroyed before they could even understand what was happening to them. Their perfect formations, so effective against conventional resistance, became death traps when every angle of approach had been anticipated and prepared for by human defenders. Admiral Cathvar watched his tactical displays with growing alarm as reports flooded in from the Mars engagement zone. His advance guard was not just taking casualties. They were being systematically destroyed by an enemy that had somehow predicted their every move. The human resistance was not the chaotic desperation he expected, but a coordinated defense network that spanned the entire orbital region. Major Kelly Thompson coordinated the second phase of Earth's defense from her command post hidden within the largest asteroid in the belt between Mars and Jupiter. The asteroid looked like a simple mining operation from the outside, but it was actually the primary coordination center for humanity's hidden weapons network. Her screens showed the locations of every Zephyrian ship tracked by the quantum markers that had been placed during the earlier reconnaissance mission. Thompson had been planning this moment for 5 years, ever since humanity first detected signs of the approaching Zephyrian Empire. Every mining operation, every research station, every seemingly innocent human installation had been designed with dual purposes. The industrial expansion across the solar system was actually the largest military preparation in galactic history. The asteroids themselves had been turned into weapons. Mining operations had hollowed out the largest rocks and filled them with kinetic launchers that could accelerate projectiles to devastating velocities. What looked like simple ore processing facilities were actually mass drivers capable of launching tungsten rods with the force of nuclear weapons. Research stations throughout the system began, revealing their true purposes as the battle expanded. Facilities that claimed to study atmospheric dynamics were actually testing exotic weapon systems. Installations that processed ice and minerals were manufacturing ammunition for the hidden defense network. Every human presence beyond Earth was part of the trap that was now closing around the alien fleet. The Zephyrian fleet found itself fighting not just a planetary defense force, but an entire star system that had been converted into a coordinated weapons platform. Every approach route had been anticipated, every tactical doctrine analyzed, every weakness in their perfect formations identified and prepared for. Admiral Kefvar realized with growing horror that he had not stumbled into a primitive system, defended by a desperate species. He had led his fleet directly into the most sophisticated military ambush that any galactic power had ever constructed. The humans had studied Zephyrian tactics for months, learning from every battle the Empire had fought, and they had designed their entire defense around exploiting the predictable patterns that had brought victory 17 times before. And his disguised cargo ships continued their deadly work, hunting down alien vessels that had broken formation in confusion. His crews fought with the precision that came from years of secret training, using weapon systems that the galaxy had never seen before. The supposed refugees had become the hunters, and the mighty Zephyrian advance guard was being systematically eliminated. Thompson watched the tactical displays as more hidden installations came online across the system. Jupiter's moons were powering up their concealed weapons platforms. Saturn's rings were revealing missile batteries that had been disguised as ice formations. Even the outer system monitoring stations were contributing to the coordinated assault, providing targeting data and communication relays for the expanding battle. The trap was only beginning to close, and Admiral Kefvar was starting to understand that he had led his fleet not to an easy conquest, but to the most devastating military defeat in Zephyrian history. Admiral Kefvar stared at his tactical displays in disbelief as the casualty reports continued to stream in from across his fleet. Nearly 200 Zephyrian ships had been destroyed in the fighting between Mars and Earth, losses that exceeded anything the Empire had suffered in its entire history of conquest. The human resistance was unlike anything they had encountered before, coordinated and deadly in ways that challenged everything the Admiral thought he knew about warfare. The remaining 800 ships of his once mighty fleet approached Earth's orbital zone with caution that would have been unthinkable just hours before. The humans had demonstrated that they could turn any piece of space debris into a weapon, that every seemingly innocent installation could be hiding devastating firepower. The Admiral's confidence in Zephyrian superiority had been shattered by an enemy that refused to fight according to the established patterns of galactic warfare. Fleet Admiral John Harrison commanded the final phase of Earth's defense from his flagship U.S. Liberty, a massive vessel that had been hidden behind the moon for the past 6 months. The ship was the culmination of human military engineering, built in secret shipyards that the galaxy had never suspected existed. Around him, his command crew worked with the calm efficiency of people who had trained their entire lives for this moment. The approach to Earth seemed almost too easy for the battered Zephyrian fleet. The planet's orbital defenses appeared minimal compared to the devastating networks they had encountered in the outer system. There were clear corridors through the defensive grid, obvious paths that would allow the alien ships to reach the planet without facing concentrated resistance. It looked exactly like what Admiral Kefvar expected from a desperate enemy making their final stand. Commander Lisa Brooks ran final calculations on enemy positions from her station aboard the Liberty. The mathematical precision required for what they were about to attempt exceeded anything that had ever been tried in military history. Every ship, every platform, every weapon across billions of miles of space had to fire at exactly the right moment for the plan to work. A single miscalculation could doom the entire human species. General Ketty Williams coordinated with ground-based installations across Earth's surface, facilities that had been disguised as everything from research centers to manufacturing plants. The planet itself had been turned into a fortress over the past decade, with weapon systems hidden beneath cities, in mountain ranges, and under the ocean floors. Every continent was prepared to contribute to the final battle. The Zephyrian fleet moved into what they thought were the clear corridors toward Earth. Their formation adjusted to take advantage of the apparent gaps in human defenses. Admiral Kethvar had learned caution from the devastating losses in the outer system, but the approach routes seemed safe enough. His sensors detected no hidden weapons platforms, no disguised installations that might spring another ambush. Captain Nick Johnson commanded the UES Vengeance, one of 50 human warships that had been hidden in the shadow zones behind Earth's moon for months. The ships were painted with adaptive camouflage that made them nearly invisible against the lunar surface, and their power systems had been running on minimal output to avoid detection. Johnson and his crews had waited in silence for this moment, ready to spring the final phase of humanity's trap. When Admiral Harrison gave the signal, Earth's true defenses revealed themselves in a display of coordinated firepower that exceeded even the most optimistic human projections. The clear corridors that the Zephyrians had been following were actually carefully designed killing fields, channels that concentrated the enemy fleet into predetermined target zones where every weapon in the system could focus their fire. The moon suddenly came alive with massive railgun installations that had been disguised as mining equipment for years. The weapons emerged from hidden silos and began accelerating projectiles to significant fractions of light speed, sending streams of tungsten penetrators directly into the heart of the alien formation. Each shot carried enough kinetic energy to crack a mountain in half. Earth's surface revealed weapon systems that had been hidden across every continent. What appeared to be radio telescopes were actually particle beam projectors. Solar power installations opened to reveal missile silos containing thousands of nuclear warheads. Manufacturing centers dropped their civilian facades and began launching swarms of autonomous attack drones that swarmed toward the alien fleet like deadly insects. Johnson led the first wave of Earth's counterattack as the hidden fleet emerged from behind the moon. 50 warships that the aliens had never detected suddenly appeared on their sensors, each one equipped with experimental weapons that human scientists had been developing for decades. The ships moved with perfect coordination, their attack patterns synchronized to create overlapping fields of fire that left no escape routes. The asteroid belt launched its contribution to the battle as mining installations revealed their true nature as mass drivers. Thousands of metallic projectiles began their journey toward Earth's orbital zone, accelerated to velocities that would turn them into devastating kinetic weapons when they arrived. The asteroids themselves had been turned into ammunition for the largest artillery system ever constructed. Saturn's rings disgorged hidden attack platforms that had been disguised as ice formations for years. The platforms emerged from their concealment and began launching coordinated missile barrages toward the enemy fleet, their nuclear warheads guided by targeting data transmitted from across the solar system. Even Jupiter's moons contributed to the assault, revealing weapons installations that had been built within their industrial facilities. Admiral Kethvar watched in horror as his fleet was systematically torn apart, weapons fire coming from every direction simultaneously. The humans had not just prepared defensive positions, they had turned their entire star system into a coordinated weapon that could focus devastating firepower on any target within billions of miles. The mathematical precision required for such coordination was beyond anything the Zephyrian Empire thought primitive species could achieve. Brooks monitored the battle from her command station, watching as years of planning and preparation came together in perfect harmony. Every calculation had been correct, every prediction had been accurate, every weapon had fired at precisely the right moment. The Zephyrian fleet was being destroyed not by superior technology, but by superior tactics and coordination that leveraged every advantage humanity could create. The battle for Earth had become a demonstration of human ingenuity and determination that would be remembered throughout galactic history. The species that the Zephyrians had dismissed as primitive was revealing itself to be the most dangerous military opponent the galaxy had ever produced. Earth's wrath was being unleashed with precision and devastation that exceeded every projection. Admiral Harrison watched the tactical displays as the alien fleet continued to shrink under the coordinated assault. The plan was working beyond their most optimistic hopes, but he knew the battle was far from over. The final phase would determine whether humanity emerged as a galactic power or died fighting against impossible odds. The final phase of the battle began 18 hours after the first Zephyrian ship had entered Earth's orbital zone. Admiral Kethvar's once mighty fleet of 1,000 vessels had been reduced to fewer than 300 survivors, scattered and broken by the most sophisticated defensive network in galactic history. The Admiral himself stood on the bridge of his damaged flagship, watching his tactical displays flicker with warning lights as human weapons continued their relentless assault. Commander Lisa Brooks had saved humanity's most devastating surprise. For the very end, her calculations had determined that the surviving Zephyrian ships would cluster together in a predictable defensive formation once their losses became overwhelming. The aliens were following their military doctrine exactly as she had predicted, grouping their remaining vessels for mutual protection in a tight spherical formation above Earth's northern hemisphere. Fleet Admiral John Harrison reviewed the final, targeting data from his command station aboard the UES Liberty. Every planet and moon in the solar system had been prepared for this moment, their hidden weapon systems charged and ready to deliver a coordinated strike of unprecedented magnitude. The mathematical precision required was staggering, with projectiles and energy beams launched from billions of miles away, all timed to arrive at the same instant. The surviving Zephyrian commanders had no idea what was coming. Their sensors detected the launch signatures from across the solar system, but the scale of the coordinated attack was beyond their ability to comprehend. Mercury's hidden installations fired first, launching streams of plasma that would take minutes to cross the vast distances of space. Venus contributed its own weapons, exotic energy projectors that had been disguised as atmospheric research stations. Mars revealed the full extent of its military transformation as every installation on the planet opened fire simultaneously. The red planet had been converted into a massive weapons platform over the past decade, with railgun batteries hidden beneath its polar ice caps and missile silos concealed within its ancient crater formations. Thousands of projectiles began their journey toward the clustered alien fleet. The asteroid belt contributed its own devastating salvo as mining operations across millions of rocks revealed their true military nature. Mass drivers that had been disguised as ore processing equipment began launching tungsten rods accelerated to incredible velocities. The asteroids themselves became ammunition, with smaller rocks pushed into collision courses that would arrive at the target zone with the force of nuclear weapons. Jupiter's contribution to the final assault was the most spectacular of all. The gas giant's moons had been extensively militarized, with weapons installations hidden within their industrial facilities and research stations. Europa launched ice projectiles accelerated to devastating speeds. Ganymede fired particle beams that cut through space like invisible swords. Io contributed volcanic glass projectiles that would fragment into deadly shrapnel clouds. Saturn's rings disgorged their hidden arsenal as thousands of concealed platforms revealed themselves among the ice particles. The weapons had been placed years earlier, disguised as scientific monitoring equipment and navigation beacons. Now they launched coordinated missile barrages that would converge on the alien formation from multiple angles simultaneously. Even the outer planets contributed to humanity's final gambit. Uranus and Neptune fired long-range projectiles that had been accelerated by gravity slingshots around their moons. The weapons would take the longest to arrive, but their impact velocities would be among the highest in the coordinated strike. Every major body in the solar system had become part of Earth's defensive network. Admiral Kethver realized what was happening just moments before the coordinated strike reached his fleet. His sensors detected incoming projectiles and energy beams from every direction, all timed to arrive within seconds of each other. The humans had turned their entire star system into a single massive weapon, coordinated with mathematical precision that his empire's greatest military minds could never have achieved. The simultaneous impact of humanity's ultimate weapon created a light show visible from Earth's surface. Hundreds of projectiles moving at significant fractions of light speed struck the clustered Zephorian formation at the same instant. Energy beams from across the solar system converged on the same target zone. Nuclear warheads detonated in perfect synchronization to create overlapping destruction fields. Admiral Kethver died in that moment. His flagship vaporized along with most of his remaining fleet. The mathematical precision of the human attack had concentrated the firepower of an entire star system into a space no larger than Earth's moon. The surviving Zephyrian ships were caught in a destruction zone that exceeded anything their shields and armor could withstand. When the light faded and the sensor interference cleared, only 153 alien ships remained from the original fleet of 1,000. The survivors were damaged and scattered, their formation broken, and their command structure destroyed. The most powerful military force in Zephyrian history had been reduced to fleeing refugees in less than a day of fighting. Commander Brooks, now promoted to admiral for her role in designing the victory, stood on the bridge of Earth's newest flagship, watching the alien survivors limp away toward deep space. 847 enemy vessels had been destroyed, their debris scattered across Earth's orbital zone like monuments to human ingenuity and determination. The casualty ratio was the most lopsided in recorded galactic military history. Captain Maria Santos took command of Earth's new deep space reconnaissance force, ships that had been built in secret shipyards throughout the system. Her mission was to track the fleeing Zephyrian survivors and prepare for humanity's expansion into the galaxy. The species that had been targeted for conquest was now ready to become the conqueror. President Patricia Williams addressed the surviving Zephyrian commanders directly through universal communication channels. Her words were broadcast not just to the fleeing aliens, but to monitoring stations across the galaxy that would carry news of humanity's victory to every civilized world. Her message was simple, but carried implications that would reshape galactic politics forever. Return to your empire and tell them what happened here. Tell them that Earth remembers its friends and its enemies. Tell them that humanity has announced its presence among the stars, and we will not be ignored or underestimated again. The age of human expansion has begun. The few surviving Zephyrian ships disappeared into hyperspace, carrying news of their devastating defeat back to an empire that would never again make the mistake of challenging humanity. Word would spread throughout the galaxy of the species that had turned an entire star system into a coordinated weapon. The beings who fought with such precision and determination that they could destroy a fleet 10 times their size. Earth had survived its first contact with a hostile galactic power. But more importantly, humanity had demonstrated that they were not victims waiting to be conquered. They were a force that would reshape the balance of power among the stars, and the galaxy would never be the same. The battle was over, but humanity's journey to the stars had just begun.